Okay, peace and greetings to everyone today. Uh, I want to touch on this story about this former Georgia deputy, right? Because I think I first saw this, it was Friday, maybe April 30th, and I wanted to put something up here when I saw it on Saturday, right? But nonetheless, I'm putting it up here today. Today is Tuesday, May 4th, 2021. All right, so let's look at this title. Give me 1 second here. Maneuver some stuff on this screen. Okay, it says former Georgia deputy called beating black man in custody. Sweet stress relief, FBI says. So let's get some more information. So this is coming from CNN. It says a former Georgia sheriff's deputy who pleaded guilty, all right, to a federal weapons charge also previously discussed assaulting a black person and wanting to charge black people with felonies. Do you see that? In order to prevent them from voting. Because as you know, with a felony, you lose your voting rights. Federal investigators allege in court records. Cody Richard Griggers. Now his name would be Griggers, since he likes to mistreat niggas. I'm just making it plain. All right? So I am a Moor, and I also know that the Moors were known as Jews in times past. You understand? Hundreds of years before you changed our name multiple times in the United States of America. And some of us were already in the United States of America before Columbus got here. Okay? But that's another story. So I just want to put that out so you can know who is talking to you and why I care and why you should. And this is whether you are a Moor, a so-called Negro, right? Or Israelite. You understand? I'm talking to the same people. You should care about this because you have people who are saying there is systemic racism, right, in the political world now. And you have people that are saying there is no systemic racism. Well, this cop, Cody Richard Griggers, who was age 28, of Montrose, Georgia, entered a guilty plea on Monday of unlawfully processing an unregistered firearm, the Justice Department announced this week. So let's keep going. An attorney for Griggers told CNN that his client was remorseful after failing to appropriately register his firearms, but blasted the government for including information in court documents suggesting his client was a white supremacist. We're going to see if he has a right to be upset because they called him a white supremacist. Yes, this so-called police officer. Those inflammatory allegations are merely that, allegations, said attorney Keith Fitzgerald, noting many of the allegations in court records are unrelated to the criminal charge against his client. Additionally, Fitzgerald said his client denies any allegations of racism. I'm sure he does. Who's going to admit that they hate niggas, right? While he's a police officer. So he may be a white supremacist, but he's not necessarily stupid, right? He is not a bigot or a racist, Fitzgerald said. In an affidavit, so I'm going to pause here on this word affidavit, which basically means a statement of truth under penalty of perjury, or what they may call under oath. So if you lie under oath, you can be imprisoned for approximately 3 to 5 years, although I'm not sure how often that is actually carried out in these instances, but that's what it's supposed to be. Let's keep going. In an affidavit supporting the government's criminal complaint against Griggers, a former deputy with the Wilkinson County Sheriff's Department, an FBI agent highlighted a series of messages allegedly written by Griggers that depicted hatred towards African Americans. In other words, the Moors, also known as the Israelites by some. So I'm putting whatever label or name you need so you can know who it's talking about. Now, the reason Just as a side note, I have a problem with this title, African Americans, because Africa is a huge continent with over 50 nations inside that continent. America includes North, Central, and South America. Canada is on the continent of North America. The United States is obviously North America. Mexico, you understand, is Central America. You see? Brazil, South America. So the entire Western Hemisphere basically is called the Americas. So to erroneously call someone an African American, what are you saying? They come somewhere from the continent of Africa or the entire Western Hemisphere? That's half the earth. Let's keep going. And the LGBT community, while also speaking positively about the Nazi Holocaust. I'm so shocked. According to court records, Griggers came on the radar of federal officials after agents seized the phone of a man under investigation in San Diego. So they got a little typo right there. They got two afters, but it's supposed to be one. The FBI alleged that Griggers, the San Diego suspect, and other unidentified individuals were part of a group text, right? Self-described as Shadow Moses. In group text, Griggers expressed anti-government views and hatred toward minorities and discussed making firearms suppressors and automatic weapons, according to the affidavit. According to the FBI, in August 2019, the former deputy sheriff sent a text describing using excessive force, here we go, against a person of color. That person of color phrase is one I don't like either, because in law, color means artificial or fake, right? As in color of law. But let's keep going. Excessive force against a person of color who was suspected of stealing a firearm accessory, right, from a local gun store, indicating, I beat the shit out of a nigga Saturday. So that's what he said. Let me read it again. This good officer said, I beat the shit out of a nigga Saturday. He put that in the text message. So you know somebody can have a screenshot of these, right? If he sent the text message, it's out there. So it doesn't have to be hearsay. Right. Sheriff's Department said it. Let me read this again. Sheriff's Department said it looked like he fell, Griggers added. Okay, that's just how they wrote it. According to the FBI, and said the beating was sweet stress relief. So he said, I beat the shit out of a nigga Saturday. Then he said the beating was sweet stress relief. This is a police officer in 2019. This is just 2021. So I'm trying to see how these people want to say there is no systemic racism when we know there is many people in the system like this. What idiot is going to come out and say publicly that he's a white supremacist, that he hates black people, right? While he's a police officer. So you cannot legislate the evil out of people's heart. You can pass whatever law you want. These devils, because that's what he is, and there's no other word for him. What should you call someone who becomes a police officer just so that they can beat up certain people and give them felonies in order to stop them from voting? You call them a devil. That's what you call them. This is not the Christian church. You understand? Loving your neighbor means loving your own people. If you're an Israelite, you better ask somebody. And for all of you who want to talk about this love and forgiveness, then let these police love and forgive these black people they keep shooting or keep beating for no reason, for whatever crime they did or did not commit. Let's keep going. However, hold on. Yeah, up here. The Wilkinson County Sheriff's Department did not respond to CNN's request for comment on the alleged incident involving the assault of a suspect. I'm so surprised that they didn't respond to the request for comment, right? Because all it's going to do is expose their filth. However, in an interview with the Macon Telegraph newspaper, Sheriff Richard Chapman, who is black, denied Griggers' claim. Let's see. That never happened, Chapman told the Macon Telegraph, adding, "We don't even have a gun shop here." Yeah, okay. Let's hope it didn't happen, right? Just like we can hope January 6th, the Capitol riot, didn't happen. Let's pretend that that white man didn't take a Confederate flag into the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021, even though we have pictures of him doing it. Something that didn't even happen during the Civil War. Really? Let's keep going. According to the federal criminal complaint, Griggers also discussed his intentions to charge black people with felonies in order to prevent them from voting. "It's a sign of beautiful things to come," Griggers texted group members, according to the FBI, and wrote, "Also, I'm going to charge them with whatever felonies I can to take away their ability to vote." The FBI provided no evidence Griggers ever did this. Well, bring out the evidence. Bring it out. Despite his alleged racist rhetoric, Griggers has not been charged with any civil rights violations. I'm so surprised he's not being charged. I'm so surprised. Right? This country doesn't give a damn when police mistreat black people, not unless you catch it on video. And even then, you got to prove that your eyes saw what you saw. You even have idiots trying to blame George Floyd for his own death. How dare he lay on the ground handcuffed with 2 or 3 men holding him down while another man has his knee in his back? How dare he say, "I can't breathe," while actually speaking words? What is he supposed to say? "Excuse me, officer, if you would get your knee off my neck, it would greatly help, because if you keep it there, eventually I won't be able to breathe." No, he's saying he can't breathe because you're in the process of cutting his air off, dumbass. Just because you can still talk doesn't mean your air is not being in the process of cutting off, of being cut off. But I'll tell you who else said they couldn't breathe. Since you want to say people who say they can't breathe can breathe because they still talking, I'm going to show you a group of people who said they couldn't breathe and they died, and I'm going to see if you agree with them. One moment. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at this New York Times article, and it's going to tell us about the deadly stampede that happened in Israel a few days ago. Now, of course, this stampede in Israel, the event itself, has nothing to do with this article about the racist police officer. But the reason I'm going to this article is because there is a particular phrase in here that these people stated as they were dying, all right? And I want you to see the difference between how you view what we're going to read here versus how you view what George Floyd said as he lost his life. That filthy defense attorney in Derek Chauvin's trial stated and had other witnesses to state that if you can speak and talk and say that you can't breathe, like George Floyd said, then that means you can breathe. So they basically mocked that man, even though they knew the officer's knee was on his neck. That's why his punk ass got convicted. And I hope he gets a lengthy sentence. So, with that being said, what we know about the deadly stampede in Israel. So this just happened a few days ago. A stampede during a mountainside religious celebration in Israel on Thursday night left at least 45 people dead and scores more injured. Here's what we know so far. So that would be Thursday night of last week. So that was, I want to say, April 29th. Yeah. So basically, April 29th, 2021 is when this stampede happened. Let's scroll down. So they got some video there on it too. Let's scroll down. I'll read some of it. The morning after a deadly stampede on a mountainside in Israel left at least 45 people dead and scores more injured, the authorities were investigating on Friday how a joyous religious ceremony was transformed into one of the deadliest civilian disasters in the nation's history. By some estimates, roughly 100,000 people had thronged to the Mount Meron tomb of an ancient rabbi, the site of the annual celebration, congregating around towering bonfires that lit up the night sky in the northern reaches of the country. It was the largest gathering since the start of the coronavirus pandemic and was approved by the authorities, despite concerns that it could fuel an outbreak. All right, but an evening of prayer and dancing turned chaotic around 1 a.m. when thousands of people found themselves trapped in a crush. So this is what you need to pay attention to, a crush, meaning they were being literally crushed or suffocated, right? Let's keep going. So they got a map showing you approximately where it is. Okay. Witnesses described a desperate scene as an avalanche of people surged, with adults and children caught in the maelstrom, struggling for air, right? So they're being crushed and they are struggling for air. So this is indeed a terrible story. But I want you to see the one part that relates to George Floyd. It relates to how these police in America treat black people. And I want to see if you would tell me that these people were lying when they said the same thing George Floyd said. The Israeli government said the dead included 4 American citizens. See? And Canada's foreign ministry said 2 Canadians died. Let's keep going. On Friday morning, as the dead were laid out on the ground in body bags, the large black hats worn by some Orthodox Jewish men visible there. Anyway, there were many questions about what caused the stampede. Here is what we know. What caused the stampede? So let me just skip on down because there's a lot of stuff here. I'm going to skip down to the point. So you see this was a serious situation. Let's go here. The situation quickly escalated as people piled atop one another in a narrow passageway with a metal floored slope. So this is why they were feeling crushed and suffocated, right? Because they were piled on top of each other. One of the injured, Chaim Wertmeyer, if I'm saying that right, said that the floor had become slippery from spilled water and grape juice. So obviously it means people started slipping. And when you have a large amount of people in a small area, people start falling on top of each other. For some reason, there was sudden pressure at this point and people stopped. But more people kept coming down. Mr. Wertmeyer told the Israeli news outlet Ynet, speaking from his hospital bed in the holy city of Safed, people were not breathing, right? I remember hundreds of people screaming, "I can't breathe." Do you see this? People were not breathing. I remember hundreds of people screaming, "I can't breathe." And 45, now let me scroll back up. And 45 of these people are dead, okay? So don't tell me just because somebody can still speak and say "I can't breathe" that means they're lying. Like that damn devil defense attorney did in Derek Chauvin's trial. But again, that's why Derek Chauvin was convicted, because we all saw the video. Nobody's making a martyr out of George Floyd, but I don't give a damn what George Floyd did 5 or 10 years ago. He got killed by that officer and it was wrong, period. And that officer, Derek Chauvin, had about 18 complaints against him in past years. But whatever the case, if both of them had clean slates before, or if they both had dirty slates, that was a murder that took place in that video. So if you can't believe George Floyd because he's a so-called black man who is a Moor or Israelite, maybe you can believe these Jews or these Ashkenazis in Israel, right? Who said they can't breathe. Because when your breath is being cut off, when you're being suffocated by someone's knee or because people are piled on top of you, your airway is being cut off. And so the natural response is to say, I can't breathe, because what it really means is, please stop what you're doing or help me get out of this situation I'm in. Otherwise, I won't be able to breathe at all. It's amazing how you can view other people as human beings, but when it's a Moor, a so-called black man or Israelite, right, now you got to act like you don't know what the hell I can't breathe means. And the reason you act like that is because you got devils like this officer here, this so-called officer, Cody Richard Griggers, a hater and killer of niggas. You understand? Because if his heart is this wicked, he may have killed somebody and we don't even know about it. You understand? So, I hope Cody Richard Griggers gets everything that's coming to him. May judgment be upon him. May justice prevail against him. May he be embarrassed, humiliated, and whatever else he needs to be legally and lawfully and economically. And I also want to show a remedy that you can use when a police officer mistreats you under color of law, because that's what this is. So anybody who has been arrested by this officer or anybody that you think may be racist like him, there's an action you can take against his punk ass. One moment. Okay, so now here we are at the United States Department of Justice website. That is www.justice.gov/deprivation-rights-under-color-law. All right? Or you just go to Google and type this phrase, deprivation of rights under color of law. So I'm going to zoom in on this. We're going to read a little bit, because as Moors, you understand, or as Israelites, because you got some of our people who say we Israelites, some say we Moors, but I know the truth that the bloodline of these people is the same. No, I am not saying that every single person who is part of the Moor Empire is an Israelite or so-called black person. I'm telling you that the word Moor literally is talking about Negroes or blacks in this United States and anybody that's bloodline related to them. All right? So anyway, it says here, deprivation of rights under color of law. Summary. Section 242. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more. Try to make it as easy as possible for you to see. Yeah, there we go. Section 242 of Title 18 makes it a crime for a person acting under color of any law. So remember I told you I didn't like that phrase, people of color, because here, color of any law means it's not real law. That's why they call it under color of law. You're pretending that you're a police officer that's serving and protecting, when really you out here to beat the shit out of niggas and to give them felonies so that they can't vote. That's called color of law. That's making it plain so that a person can understand it with little or no knowledge of the law. Let's keep going. So, it's a crime for a person acting under color of any law to willfully deprive a person of a right or privilege protected by the Constitution or laws of the United States. For the purpose of Section 242, acts under color of law include acts not only done by federal, state, or local officials within their lawful authority, but also acts done beyond the bounds of that official's lawful authority. If the acts are done while the official is purporting to or pretending to act in the performance of his or her official duties. So there it is. He became a police officer just so he could pretend to protect and serve, while really he wants to beat niggas' asses. That's color of law. So his ass can be sued. So any cop who has treated you like that or anything similar, right? If he arrested you, if he planted drugs on you, if he called you a nigga because he knew nobody was listening, whatever racist or otherwise way he deprived you of your rights, or any elected or public official, you can charge their ass with deprivation of rights under color of law. But you need to gather as much evidence as you can, because of course they're going to lie and say they didn't do it. Let's keep going. Persons acting under color of law within the meaning of this statute include police officers. Wonder why it names them first. Because they know that the police officer is the one that has the power to lock you up. Now, let me back up. They have the power to harass you, right? Pull you over, arrest you, lock you up, and even kill you if they so choose. Before you even get a court date, they could kill you. So perhaps that's why their asses are listed here first. So if you're a good police officer, then you shouldn't have a problem with this article from the Justice Department, because you are protecting and serving and bringing about justice for the people. But if you're a white supremacist or any other dirty cop, then I see why you have a problem with this. So, persons acting under color of law within the meaning of this statute include police officers, all right, prison guards. Those are police officers too, but they're just after you've been arrested, obviously, in prison, and other law enforcement officials, as well as judges, care providers in public health care facilities. Now we get into nurses, doctors, CNAs, whatever, and others who are acting as public officials. It is not necessary that the crime be motivated by animus toward the race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, or national origin of the victim. So although racism, right, or sexism, or discrimination because of a handicap, etc., religious bias, although that would obviously be deprivation of rights under color of law, it does not have to be. So you don't have to prove that it was racism. You don't have to prove that it was sexism, right, or colorism. You just have to prove that they deprive you of your rights while pretending to be doing something else. And that's it. The offense is punishable by a range of imprisonment up to a life term or the death penalty, because this is a serious offense. If you're a police officer or a judge or a prosecutor or a healthcare worker and you intentionally harming or killing people while pretending to do your job as a judge or an officer or a doctor or a nurse, etc., you could harm someone seriously or kill them. So I agree with these charges. With these punishments, right? Depending upon the circumstances of the crime and the resulting injury, if any, right? So of course, even if they do something to you, if it doesn't injure you, right, then we wouldn't say they should get the death penalty or even a life term, but they should be punished nonetheless, either economically or with a shorter prison term, right? And so here is Title 18 USC Section 242. Whoever under color of any law, statute, ordinance, regulation, or custom willfully subjects any person in any state, territory, commonwealth, possession, or district to the deprivation of any rights, privileges, or immunities secured or protected by the Constitution or laws of the United States, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 1 year or both. And if bodily injury results from the acts committed in violation of this section, or if such acts include the use, attempted use, or threatened use of a dangerous weapon. So I would say the black man who got his ass beat, who got the shit beat out of him by Cody Richard Griggers, that's bodily injury. So this is what should be done to him. Explosives or fire. Cody Richard Griggers should be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 10 years. Perhaps that's why his ass is facing 10 years approximately, right? Or both. So he should be fined and imprisoned. And if death results from the acts committed in violation of this section, or if such acts include kidnapping, Kidnapping would be arresting somebody, as far as I'm concerned, because if you arrested them falsely, that's no longer a lawful arrest. So that qualifies as kidnapping. You handcuff them, snatch them up, put them in a car against their will, and imprison them. When all the while you did it just because they was black, or just because you hated their color, or just because you a low down asshole, right? So if such acts include kidnapping or an attempt to kidnap, aggravated sexual abuse, or an attempt to commit aggravated sexual abuse, or an attempt to kill, shall be fined under this title, or imprisoned for any term of years, or for life, or both, or may be sentenced to death. So with that being said, study the deprivation of rights under color of law. Study this section. Get more details on it, because the ... of course, that means there are some more. But familiarize yourself with the laws of this land. Not just the ones they can punish you with, but the ones that protect you from unjust treatment by public officials, which does include police officers, right? Or judges, or prosecutors, or nurses, doctors, etc., etc. Mayors, anybody. So with that said, I'm going to say may the rest of your day or night be good, and do what's right. Treat people the way you want to be treated. If you want me to view you as a human being, it would help if you would view me as a human being. If you want someone of another ethnicity or national origin to treat you and respect you as a human being, it would help you to respect them as a human being.